Hey everybody, welcome back to Assemble XP. We've got a big show today, Court, because we are talking about, well, something that you are trying to master through, which is Halo. And we have more updates because we have the next flight. Now, we live in Canada, which is usually good because we got the maple syrup, we've got the Tim Hortons, we've got beavers and mooses and all of that stuff going on in our lives. It's kind of crazy. The snow hasn't come yet, but give it 30 days and we will get hit by snow. We get the Halo Infinite flight. But unfortunately, because we're in Canada, we get it like later in the day. It's always a big tease. We don't get it right away in the morning when I'm ready for it. I gotta wait until like after lunch. But anyways, we want to talk to all of you today about the next flight that we have for Halo Infinite, as well as some of the details coming out of Eurogamer regarding the performance itself. If you guys can, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel. We just achieved our first goal of 100 subscribers. That's my clap. That's my little, yeah, Court did a thumbs up, see? Oh, and he gave a clap too. That's nice of him. Thanks so much, everybody, for subscribing to the channel, supporting our growth. We are on the way now to the next goal, next milestone, which will be 500, then to 1,000 subscribers, and then Court and I just quit, right? We just...
Fair enough. Yeah,
see?
we're done.
Like, then you and I don't have to hang out anymore.
No. God,
and I know
it's
for
daily.
yeah.
It's fun.
Like, it's turned into a thing. It's like we work in the office together, and we have the meeting every week and every day now. It's becoming a little much.
Yeah.
Court, talk to everybody about Halo Infinite and the latest flight. What's going on? What are the details?
So the latest flight this weekend is free to everyone. So all you have to do, you don't even have to have an Xbox Live Gold account. Just go on Halo Waypoint.
Just go.
Sign up. Then you sign up for the Halo Insider, which is on your Insider Hub, which is on your Xbox or your PC, whatever you have your Xbox UI on. Go in there, sign up. Everyone can play this week. The matchmaking servers will be active October 1st to the 3rd during the hours of 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Time. Access to the build will then close in the morning on Monday, October 4th. If you're playing when the servers aren't live for matchmaking, you can still go in and play the weapon drills in the training mode. And I do recommend that to everyone. Yeah. That is what I was doing this morning. I was going around in the Behemoth and I was having a little bit of fun. I was driving a Warthog. You can do all that stuff. You can set it up that it can make it just easy and you can just go around and kill people and just have some fun. So also we got some performance modes, impressions from Richard Ledbetter of Digital Foundry.
I love his name.
Yeah, I know. He sounds so good when he talks too. He's like Richard Attenborough. He could narrate video game documentaries. I think he should, but that's just my opinion. But he wrote an article on Eurogamer. The link will be in the description below. Halo Infinite's latest technical tests are in full flight. Last weekend, the action kicked off with the trio maps we saw in the initial preview, backed by the new game maps, offline training options, and surprise debut of the new Behemoth map. The one I played today. Loved it.
Love Behemoth.
The testing continues this weekend, and the arrival of the big team battles is enticing. Based on what we played, the console versions are looking more impressive overall, and there's good news in terms of improvements of the game's performance modes on Xbox Series X and perhaps, surprisingly, Xbox One X. However, the truth is that for most part, the technical makeup of Halo Infinite is mostly unchanged from the game's multiplayer test debut. So to recap, Xbox One S is clearly the most challenged version. It attempts to run at 1080p but has aggressive dynamic resolution scaling, independently shifting pixel counts on both horizontal and vertical resolutions. This can look rather rough, a situation not helped by the 30 frames per second cap that sees new frames delivered unevenly, adding to extra choppiness. However, it's Halo Infinite. It's playable while you have the disadvantage of playing Xbox users or any other console. It is still enjoyable. Xbox Series S, again, is mostly unchanged from the first time we saw the multiplayer code and runs smoothly as it was essentially a locked 60 frames per second. There are no 1440p pretensions here, so you get a consistent 1080p experience. And while dynamic resolution scaling is still used, it's hard to find areas where constant drops are noticeable. However, the 120 Hz mode found in the first test flight is gone. When we first looked at it, it actually ran more smoothly than the Xbox Series X equivalent mode, but resolution could hit lows of 540p. Perhaps 343 Industries is having a rethink. In the meantime, Series X performance mode is clearly in a much better state than it was before. With the expectation of the one-off frame drop essentially invisible to the human eye, it's 120 frames per second lock with a DRS window of 1080p to 1440p. Aside from some 60 frames per second animations, the movement and fluidity
There you
is
go.
brilliant. Yeah, it was a tough one for me. The visuals hold up nicely despite the fluctuating resolution and overall. It's a triumph. Interestingly, accessing 120 frames is achieved via the quality performance toggle that didn't work in the first preview. This time, the option does work. Allow to swap between 60 frames per second and 120 frames modes, but only if the dash is set to 120 output. Unsurprisingly, it is set to 60 output. You'll get the quality mode only, which seems to be offering 1080p 2160 dynamic scaling range. Both options are basically running flawless, and right now, Series X offers premiere experience. But perhaps the biggest surprise is the latest round of testing is the Xbox One X, which looked impressive in its debut with the visuals close to Series X experience, but was limited to 30 frames per second. With a far frame pacing issues on the Xbox One S version, sorry. You've got the looks, but fundamentally the high-speed first-person shooter running at 30 frames per second doesn't feel so good, but puts a disadvantage against the Xbox Series players. So there's a lot more to this article. I want everybody to read it. I do apologize for all the technical jargon if you didn't understand what I was saying. From what I got from the article, Matt, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Xbox Series X version is the best.
Yep.
The Xbox Series S version is decent. And the Xbox One X is surprisingly runs well.
Yeah.
But I was disappointed to hear the problems that were persisting with the Xbox One S, that it's pretty much, it attempts to run at 1080p, but it has a hard time doing so. That I was actually in shock because I have an Xbox One S and the games on it have been running very well. So I will test out Halo Infinite on it just to see what it's like. I'll go on and after we get off the show, I'll run some training modes to see what it looks like. But it may be just telling us that this is an Xbox Series X game. What do you think?
I think that by the time we get to the release, everything gets optimized and flushed out. I'd be curious to see if they did on the Series S, if they kept it at a locked 30 frames with an optional 60, and they just play with performance and fidelity that way on the S, because I wonder if they would go with, hey, we can give you, what's the max resolution on the S? 1440? They could do a 4K.
1440p.
Yeah. So I think I would wonder if a final product on the S would be a 1440p max. Trade-off is that you get 30 frames per second, or we could swap it and give you a very stable or 1080p with a locked 30. Either way, I mean, I think on that front, I think the One X is surprising that it's actually outperforming. Like, if you need a Halo box, then go find an old, cheaper One X, because I think you'll probably be surprised. It'll probably come in at like 4K, maybe even similar to the S, and just output 4K 30. I don't know.
But like for me, I'm hoping, and I'm going to check after to see if you can go in the multiplayer. I know you can get rid of PC players and not play with them.
I gotta do that.
Even though a One X, or I mean a Series X person can still play keyboard and mouse hooked up to their Series X. I know that you can block out PC players. I'm feeling like there is a slight disadvantage to Xbox Series S players and Xbox One S or whatever.
X.
Yeah. Honestly, Xbox. I love you, but these names.
Last gen.
I still feel there would be a disadvantage to us Xbox Series X players playing at 120 hertz.
Yeah.
We're gonna see it. It's gonna be a lot easier for us to play the multiplayer. That is, like, for me, if I'm playing a multiplayer shooter, I want the best frames per second I can get. So if that means that I'm gonna get 1440p on the X, but I'm gonna get
60 or
120 hertz,
yeah,
I'll take that. If I'm playing campaign, yes, I want the 4K. The 60. It looks like it'll be 4K 60. That's been that's
a standard
go-to.
now.
Yeah, that's becoming the standard. If you want 120p, you're gonna lose some graphic capabilities. I get it.
I'm with you.
But for multiplayer,
yeah, you do need the max frames, especially. Yeah, if you can offer 120, I would also be like knocking out filtering out anybody on PC because they're going to be sitting there with 120 hertz, everything maxed out, mouse and
Click, click, click,
keyboard.
click,
I'm
click, click, click.
just toast. I'd rather play with dum-dums that are just better than me, but like I'm at least have a shot where I can play at 60 hertz and 60 frames per second, and I've got it in 4K on my Series X, and I'll be as happy as I can be. I would be disappointed if I'm glad the Series X is performing as well as it is, and it will be probably the one to shine. Xbox is going to want it from a marketing side. I know they want to play anywhere and everywhere, and that's the message. But to sell that console, Halo sells the console. It's on the box of the Series X when it launched, even though the game wasn't out. So they're going to want to be able to promote and say, have the most optimized experience on your Series X, and that will push it out, even though there are like shortages and stuff for the console. I think they'll get there. I mean, honestly, I'm really not worried. There is still 2 months before the game comes out. We're getting flights, and everyone expects it to be like, yeah, I've had low frame rates. I've had stuff that I'm like, textures don't look right. I've had texture popping like crazy. Stripping
But
that,
as Richard Ledbetter said, not much has changed. Like I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
All that goes through my brain right now is, okay, yes, I got my Halo Edition Series X coming. I'm 100% going to sell my S, and I love the S. I thought it was a great console, but if they're telling me that it's struggling to run Halo Infinite, but a caveat to that is if they can get it so that I can get 1440p 60 frames per second, I'll be happy as a pig and poop. Like, let's be honest here. I would be. Like 1440p to me, I can't, like I'm
Yeah,
playing Far
I
Cry
know.
5 right now, and it looks great. It looks great.
there's only so much your eye can actually pick up when you're and unless you're increasing your actual display. Like I'm sitting with a 4K Samsung TV, and it looks great. Like all my games look great that play 4K at 1440 or whatever, or
Imagine you had
2160.
an OLED.
I know, I keep saying that to the wife, but then she says, "What's an OLED?" And then I walk away. I can't do it. I'm not allowed to yet. But
Just go buy it.
I might just have to. But it creates it does, unless you're looking for that most absolute optimized experience. Yeah, 1440 at 60 is fantastic. And like we said, I think for this game, for multiplayer especially, it is going to come down to that frame rate. You're going to want that if you care. But there is a huge percentage of the market that are just young kids that are going to be getting their first taste of Halo. There's going to be parents out there that mom and dad played Halo originally when they grew up, and now they have kids that are going to play Halo Infinite for the first time. They're not going to care so much about, well, it's locked in at 30 or it's locked in at 60. They don't necessarily care. They want to be able to play the multiplayer, have fun, and it is fun. Now, for the whittle it down to people that play Halo regularly, and you and I that are they're jumping on the bandwagon, it matters. I want to be able to have across the board the best experience I can get. And if my Series X can do 60 frames locked and it's 2160, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'll die a lot,
same
but
here.
I'm good.
Yeah, like frames. I wasn't on the frames per second bandwagon until this generation. Pez, who somehow I mention on every show, he plays primarily on PC. Actually, he only plays on PC.
I was gonna say he doesn't
got rid
play
of his
anything
consoles.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a PC master race now guy. But he was explaining to me frames per second, and then when I first got the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, I messaged him and I was like, okay, so I can't go back. Like I can't go back. Like I can't play. And one of my gripes about the PS5, I couldn't play the PS4 versions anymore. But if this generation has taught us anything, it's been the generation of we're going to get the game out and we'll fix graphics or performance mode after fact in a month or two in a patch. So my guess is exactly what you said earlier is the Xbox Series S will run 60 frames per second, 1440p for Halo Infinite campaign and multiplayer. That is what it's going to be. And then it'll be 4K 60, 4K 60 or
120.
Or 1440, 120 on the X.
Yeah.
And then your Xbox One X will be 1080p 60.
I think
That's
you're right.
what this is my guess. Just a guess.
But let us know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you guys care? What do you think is the ideal experience, optimal experience when you're playing Halo? What are you playing it on? Let us know in the comments below. We'll see you on the flight, Court, because we're gonna go shoot him up, but we're gonna do terrible. Like,
Yeah, I'm gonna go right now.
like real bad. Like it's gonna suck. I know you're gonna
I always
destroy
do.
me too.
Yeah, I hope so.
I hate you so much. See ya.